welcome to the fourth of the BTS Careers Pathways events. For those who haven't met me before, I'm Jeff Scholes. I'm one of the directors of Bespoke Training Solutions. So just a little bit of background about myself. I started my career in financial services in the 1980s as a broker consultant for equity and law. Some of you might have heard them. They became AXA. Found my way into learning and development in the 1990s. So I, together with Louisa Todd, we set up Bespoke Training Solutions in 2004. So we've been doing it for a while. And since then, we're focusing on producing material and learning support that increases the chance of people passing the CII Financial Services exams. So these Careers Pathways events, these are a chance for our listeners to hear from people who've got expertise in particular sectors or with particular journeys. And these people are happy to share their experience and be open to questions. So later on in the event, I'll open up the microphone for questions. But I'm pleased to say we've got two guests with us today, so who can share a wealth of experience in the role of a paraplanner. So I've got Kimberley, Kimberley Malin. You're a paraplanner at Four Oaks Financial Services, Kimberley, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And Lisa, you're Director of Financial Planning, Lisa Tipton, Financial Planning at New World. So in a second or two, I'm going to come to Lisa and Kimberley and ask them to introduce themselves and talk about their role generally. But then we will talk about the role of a paraplanner. And what I'm keen on finding out is how the journey looks, how you get into the role, what the qualifications look like, what the next steps are. So it's those types of things we're going to be talking about. I should point out to everybody that today's event will be recorded. There'll be an audio recording of today's event. So not the video of today, there'll be an audio recording. That's going to be available on the BTS website. So you'll be able to access it there. And it'll be available to anybody who's dialed in on the call today as well. But it's available on the BTS public website and also on the other social media platforms. So the audio recording will be available usually within about an hour, 2 hours of the event, that type of period, or later on this evening. So Kimberley, Lisa, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to our event. I'm going to go straight to one of you. So Lisa, I'm going to come to you first. Could you tell me just a little bit about yourself and your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said before, I'm Lisa. I'm Director of Financial Planning at New World Financial Group. So we're a relatively new financial planning firm. We only launched at the beginning of last year. So I do still consider myself to be a paraplanner, but actually, obviously my role has developed a little bit over the last few years. So I am sort of responsible for a lot of the business management, checking cases, things like that, as well as helping out with the day-to-day support and paraplanning.
Okay, and I'm guessing you'll be seeing people coming into the business. I don't know what this stage the business is at. Do you have people new to the role, experienced people in the role?
In the paraplanner role at New World?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've got one paraplanner at New World, Heather. So Heather's joined us 9 months ago. She's doing great. She's just 22. She's passed 5 of the 6 RO exams, 3 of those over the last 9 months since she's joined, and it's been great to see her develop over the last 9 months. And yeah, she's doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, I've seen some comments on LinkedIn today from people who are in their early 20s who've just got their diploma, which scares me to death.
Yeah.
That says more about my age. Thanks, Lisa. I'm just going to come to you, Kimberley. Just that's a quick question again, just a little bit before we start about yourself and your role.
Yeah, so I'm Kimberley. I'm a junior paraplanner at Four Oaks Financial Services. I've sort of floated in between the admin and the paraplanning role for many years, really. Never kind of jumped over the fence, but now I'm like full forces. Okay. I'm going for it. I've just completed my diploma at the moment on RO2 at the moment, which is something else.
A deep joy. A deep joy is the word you're looking for, Kimberley.
Exactly. I'm just thoroughly enjoying it. Yeah.
Good.
I've done some of the other ROs, but yeah, RO2 is the one I was dreading, so I sort of left it until nearer the end.
Okay.
But yeah, so I'm just really enjoying the paraplanning role, and obviously people have probably seen some of my posts on LinkedIn. I've got a bit sort of shouty about paraplanning as a career in its own right. The advisor role just isn't for me. It's not something I want to do. Paraplanning is where I want to be, and that's where I'm going. So,
and that's really good to see, because I think we've been talking in the past about the differences between those. There's a lot of crossover between being an advisor and being a paraplanner. Mm-hmm. There's a fundamental crossover, and then there's some real differences. So I'm going to stick with you, Kimberley. So what led you to choose paraplanning as a career path rather than an advisor?
So way back when, I got into financial services by accident, really. I did an apprenticeship, business admin, and they placed me in a place where financial services company. And it kind of all just led from there, really. And then I had no idea what a paraplanner was either. Absolutely clueless. And just sort of met people along the way that, you know, had done the role, were in the role. And I loved sort of like its technical nature, you know, a challenge all the time. There's always something new to learn. And I just thought, yeah, I just know absolutely that this is the role for me. I've just, you know, my strong point is like organisation and, you know, sort of being able to take a large amount of information and sort of make it make sense. So yep. I kind of knew that was the side of things for me. It was definitely the paraplanning rather than the going out and advising, really. And
it's a different set of skills, isn't it, that you're bringing together into achieving the same benefit for the client, but two different sets of skills. So it's interesting that one appealed to you. What about you, Lisa, in terms of the advisor role, the paraplanner role? What led you down your particular path?
I think very similar to Kimberley, really. So I started off a long time ago now in life officers. So I'd done quite a lot of experience within financial planning, but within life officers rather than in financial advisors. And I very much was leaning towards wanting to do something that was technical, that involved having to have a lot of knowledge, applying that knowledge. But I never really wanted to do that face-to-face with clients. So in 2013, we were moving from Manchester to the northeast, so it gave me a chance to kind of relook at what I wanted to do, and it was a paraplanner role that really appealed to me. I wanted to really be able to develop that planning aspect, but I didn't want to go down the face-to-face with clients route or down the management route at that time. So yeah, all of the things that are involved with paraplanning really appealed to me.
Right. Okay. I mean, paraplanning itself, and we didn't even use the phrase not that long ago. I mean, it's people like you, Kimberley, making a lot of valuable noise on LinkedIn, but it's not a phrase that we use. So it's difficult to get information to help you make that decision. It sounds like you both did. Lisa, where did your information come from when you were saying, well, what is where did you get your information?
Well, the first time I ever came across the term paraplanner was probably about 15 years ago now. And I was actually underwriting at the time for a life company, and someone had applied for a life policy and they listed their job title as paraplanning. At the time, none of us had ever heard of it. And we all kind of went away and researched and found out what it was. And it stuck with me ever since then. And then I moved on to another life company, and we were working with IFAs and paraplanners. So that really gave me a chance to see, you know, what the difference was in the roles, because we dealt with them on a day-to-day basis.
Because it was an unknown term, wasn't it? And we'd heard
it was, absolutely, yeah.
We knew what a paralegal, well, we didn't know what a paralegal did. We'd heard of it, but the concept of a paraplanner didn't exist. Kimberley, where did you get your information from? How did you find out about this then as a role?
So yeah, I've mainly found out from just talking to people, really. Like I said, you know, I met people that were in the role, etc. I mean, I've only been in the industry for 9 years, almost 10 years. So it was kind of around when I was around.
Thanks, Kimberley. Thank you.
Sorry, I do apologise.
It was never new to you.
So yeah, it basically was from talking to people. But I mean, like, you know, people will find out that if you try and search for it on the internet, everybody's got a very different definition of what a paraplanner does. Firm to firm, it's a very different world. You know, it depends on whether the firm is independent or restricted. Again, the paraplanner has a completely different role. So I think I've just sort of found my own way of what I think a paraplanner is and what we do, etc., because I've talked to people. Really, I think the internet is a bit clouded, really, with a lot of opinions.
I think LinkedIn is becoming better.
Definitely.
And we're getting good information out there as well. So you said in different ways of describing the role. How would you describe your role, Kimberley? How would you describe, if you're talking to, you know, my role as a paraplanner, what do you tell them that means?
It means that you have your mind blown every day of your life. Well, obviously I say we sit in the background. We don't sit in the background at all. I think we work collaboratively with advisors. That's the way it should be. You know, it's a side-by-side partnership to enhance the client's journey, really. And like we said earlier, you know, the advisor brings different aspects to the financial planning journey, and so does the paraplanner. And, you know, the more that we can work together and it's not seen as the advisor just passes the case to the paraplanner, you know, we work on a par. I think that'll be great for the industry going forward. That relationship is absolutely key, and also bringing in the admin team to that as well. They have a huge role to play as well in preparing, getting the information ready for us to work on the case. So yeah.
Okay, so similar question to you, Lisa. If I was new and had never heard of this, what would you say? Oh, the role is this.
Say the role of the paraplanner is really building that plan for the client. So it's taking all of the information that has been gathered about the client, about what they have, about what their dreams are, about what it is that they want to achieve, putting it all together, doing the research, building, cash flow models to actually be able to put a plan together to help them achieve their dreams, and then passing that over to the advisor to actually then talk through with them.
And it's very collaborative, isn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
We've attended, guys, Lisa and Kimberley and I were talking before about the various events that BTS have attended. So there's Paraplanner events, they've been in Birmingham, Exeter, there's one in London going on. And so I've been lucky enough to meet way more paraplanners than I used to. And the level of knowledge of these people is amazing. Much more than people when I used to do the advice role. I didn't have that level of knowledge. I'd be going back to the office, looking in the book, going, what on earth do I do now? But it seems to be more at the front of the brain. And you both mentioned things like being organized, being structured, liking to have everything in one place. Is there a set of skills that's particularly relevant that said, can you almost look at a skill set and go, that person would make an ideal paraplanner? Either of you.
I think so. I think in terms of like your technical knowledge for a paraplanner and an advisor should be pretty much the same. You both need to have a good understanding of how everything works, what's best to recommend. But in terms of your skill set, it is very different between a paraplanner and a planner. So a paraplanner is, as we've mentioned, they're the organised one. They're the one that likes to write reports. They like to do the research. They're generally good with numbers. And they're probably, in most cases, less keen on doing that relationship building than the advisor is.
So that sounds quite objective. That sounds quite looking at the facts that are on the paper. Is that right or wrong?
I would agree with that. Yeah. Would you agree with that, Kimberley?
Yeah. I think for me, like from my personal experience, like people always say, oh, you have to be good with numbers, which I agree to a certain extent you do. Maths was never my strong point at school. It never was. I'm not afraid to admit that. But I've worked really hard over the years to up my mathematical skills and things that, people would go, oh, I don't want someone who's not very good at maths. But, as long as someone's got the right attitude and is happy to get stuck in and, have a good amount of experience behind their belt, I think there is some skills where you can go, actually, we can work on these. You don't need them immediately to be able to do this role. So yeah, I think to a certain extent there are some skills, but some I think you can let them go and say, as long as you're willing to work on them, you've got the right attitude, then great.
And do paraplanners tend to work with one advisor, a team of advisors in the day-to-day role? Are you a resource that's available to support lots of people, or do you work closely? Or again, does that depend on the model?
It depends.
Yeah. Sorry, you go. Yeah, I work for a restricted firm, so we have a team of advisors where I could get allocated to any advisor any day, any case. But I have worked in a business before where I worked specifically just for one advisor. So I think it really does depend.
And does that make it different, Kimberley, as to whether if you're working with one advisor, you're almost a silent person on their shoulder all the time? We're working with a team. Does that make the role different?
Yeah, I think when you work with a team, especially if you're writing a suitability letter, I've kind of worked out now the team that I work with, they all like it done in a different way because of the way that they work, present to the client and how they would write the suitability letter. So you kind of almost have to learn, how each advisor likes the job doing, although we sit within like sort of the compliant remit and we have to do certain things.
Absolutely, within the parameters.
Yeah, the language that we use.
We're still human beings with our own voice.
Exactly. So sometimes I think it can be harder working for, a big team just to get yourself used to how they all work. But once you're there and you know how they're all working and how they like things done, I guess, it becomes easier again. But yeah, to start with, I think it can be quite daunting when you're working for a lot of different advisors and one's shouting, I want it this way, the other one's going, I want it this way. And you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing it right. But
yeah, I put it in this way for Jeff's suitability letter and Alex
exactly.
Alex doesn't want it that way. Hang on. Yeah, it's the nature of the industry that we're in.
Yeah, that's it. And a bit of confidence is key as well, being able to sort of say to the advisor, oh, I appreciate you like it done this way, but the other person had it done this way. I'm just going to learn, find out how you like it to be done. It's going to be a couple of months before I can get it right, sort of thing. So, yeah.
A real relationship, isn't it, by the sound of it?
Yeah, it's just building it, yeah.
The people you're working with. Lisa, you were going to say something, and I'm sorry, I interrupted a little.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say, I think in terms of your original question as to whether it's one-to-one or kind of team-based, it does very much depend on the company that you're working for, and each one tends to have its own way of working. And like Kimberley said, it can be challenging if you are working with a team, but I think there are big advantages to that. I think there's big advantages to working with different people and learning, what they do, and just getting that, different skill set, rather than just, if you're just with one person all the time, then it can limit you a little bit in terms of, development, I think.
And Kimberley said yours is every day is a challenge, because you never know what's going to happen on that particular day.
Yeah, absolutely.
On that basis, be as honest as you want here, guys, or hold things back. What are the main challenges of the role then? What are the things that, do you know what? Are the none, is the role perfect?
We're both going to say the same thing. I know we are.
Go on.
I think sometimes the advisors struggle to get the information from this thing here and onto the paper there, because, they know the client inside out. But at the end of the day, I need to know the client inside out as well, so I can do the best piece of work for them. And I think that's something I come across all the time, is that they go, oh, you know about this, or so and so, and I think, no, because it's not on the paper.
Okay, let me think about this. No, mind reading. No, I didn't know that.
Do you know what? Most of the advisors I work with, they'll admit that as well. They're really good at retaining the information in their head, but not getting it, out onto the piece of paper that I need to.
And that's the nature of the person that does that role. This is a real generalization, isn't it? But that's one of the core strengths of being an advisor, is all that engaging with the client.
Yeah.
Most of us don't enjoy the next bit.
No, that's it.
Was it the same thing, Lisa, or not? Was that the same challenge?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely. I think it's that if it's not written down, it doesn't exist, and being able to portray that message, and actually, understanding that you need all of this to provide the best possible advice, and also write the best possible report for the client. It's, getting that information out of their heads and onto paper. I think the other key challenge can be kind of, really getting challenging advisors and getting them to kind of identify the client's key objectives. That's something that, I've definitely had to work on with advisors in the past.
I suppose you provide a safe environment, don't you? Because if you and your advisor can have that conversation and it gets thrashed out there and agreed, that advisor is now much more clear when they're talking to the client about, actually, I've had this internal dialogue with Lisa or with Kimberley, and actually, I'm now more ready for the call itself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, we talked a little bit about relationships and about the fact that, advisors tend to like the relationship area a little bit more on the whole, but the paraplanner advisor relationship is incredibly important, and it's really important that there is a strong relationship with a lot of trust, so that each of those, two individuals can challenge each other to get the best possible result.
It's interesting you were talking about, there's a lot of crossover with the world that I'm more familiar with, the exam world, because you look at a question and you say, if I miss a keyword in this, the answer I would give to this question would be completely different. There's lots of people who are celebrating success or deferred success with R06 currently, and that's all been about picking out a keyword that can make such a difference into the response that you put in. So I cleverly linked it back to exams.
Yeah, very good.
Did you see that? In terms of exams, Lisa, I'm going to start with you. Which exams would you recommend that a paraplanner goes for as part of their career?
So based on what I've seen so far, I'd say my recommendation would be to start with the RO exams, RO1 to RO6. I think that just gives you that breadth of technical knowledge and understanding that's, a really good place to start. It doesn't give you all the soft skills you need. It doesn't help you with, the relationship building with advisors, or necessarily with reports, or knowing what to look into. But in terms of that technical start, I think it's a great place to start.
Okay, so you'd say diploma is probably a core, I'm going to say hurdle, that's the wrong word, a core, something to get past as part of this role. Yeah. I'm trying not to say hurdle, that sounds negative. Kimberley, bail me out here. What do you think are the right ones?
Yeah, so I took a slightly different angle. So when I first came into the industry, I did some level 3 exams. So I think it was FA2, which is like pension administration and things like that. Because I'm sort of the person who, if I'm doing the exams, I need to be able to apply the knowledge at the same time, because I feel it makes me, I learn better doing it that way. And I jumped around a bit with the ROs as well. So I did RO1, then I did RO4, then I did RO5, because they were relevant to what I was doing at the time.
That's not the journey we'd normally recommend people take.
No, I'm sorry. But it was relevant to the job that I was doing at the time, and I could apply the knowledge. So because I could apply the knowledge, I knew that the exam would become easier for me, because exams are not my strength. I prefer to write assignments and things like that. So I knew that the conventional route of 1 to 6 probably just wasn't going to work for me. So I jumped around, and like I said, left RO2 to the last. Shouldn't have done it. It's hard.
I love RO2 and RO3, my favourites. I mean, interesting. You've both gone. You mentioned the CII route. Now, on one of our previous Careers Pathways events, we talked about this CII, the LIBF, and CISI as different routes. Were they considered at all as part of your journey?
I think when I started my journey, it was that long ago, about over 20 years ago, that, I mean, I actually started with the FPC, the Financial Planning Certificate, which, shows my age. So
it shows mine as well, Lisa, exactly the same route.
I mean, partially I was influenced by what the company would pay for. And at the time, that was a route that the company I worked for would pay for. I don't even know whether the CISI route was around at the time, but certainly wasn't something that I considered then. It is something that I would consider moving forward in terms of the level 7 certificate, because I've heard, a lot of good things about that, and about the level of knowledge you sort of gain, and how applicable that can be to the day job.
And that, I think it's quite application based, isn't it?
Yes.
That one, from what I've heard and talking to paraplanners.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
The route you went down, any particular reason you chose the exam provider you did?
Just most of the people I spoke to had used the CII, and it kind of was like the big dog in the industry, I suppose, the one that everybody talks about. I mean, I don't think the books are particularly easy to digest, and when I met a paraplanner last year, Sean from Planworks, she was talking to Louisa, and she recommended me to BTS, and I've started using that for my RO2, and it is so much easier to digest. I'm just so glad, because you get the explanation as well behind some of the things that don't necessarily make sense if you just read them from the CII book. Like, I benefit from that. And at the end, when you get the questions and it says why this is wrong or why it's right, that has been a massive help to me. And honestly, I don't think I'd make it through RO2 if I didn't have the BTS book.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Do paraplanners tend to study exams whilst doing their role? Because I know some advisors will almost self-study first, get themselves to diploma level, then step into the market. Some will follow an academy route. How does it tend to work for paraplanners? Is study as part of the day job alongside in the evenings? What's the model, or is there one?
Yeah, that's what I do personally. Obviously, I'm still classed as a junior at the moment, and I work in the day and then study in the evening, which isn't always great because I've got 2 young kids and trying to fit it all in.
Juggling it, isn't it? Exactly.
It is hard. It's hard work, when you've been at work all day and then you've got to study all evening, and it's not sort of the thing you can do for a couple of days a week and then put it down, pick it up next week. You have to keep on it, every night.
Knowledge
every other night.
Goes on.
You've got to, keep building it. I think the longer that you leave it, the harder it becomes, really. You have to just sort of go, I'm going to focus, I'm going to get this exam done, set yourself a time scale and off you go. But yeah, I'm doing it whilst doing the role as well. So, which
I guess has some advantages because you're applying it, but as you say,
yeah, exactly. Depends how you work, I think. But yeah, like I said, because I need to apply the knowledge, I'm doing it whilst working. Yeah.
So you're looking for efficiency to manage the two things at the same time.
Yeah.
Lisa, in your organisation, do people get time off for study, or is it again a study in your own time whilst doing the role?
We've introduced a study club at the start of this year to just try and support people a little bit. So we have that every Tuesday morning. So it mostly involves doing past papers, to be perfectly honest, because I've found certainly when I've done the exams, a lot of it is exam technique. It's knowing what they're looking for. So just doing those papers again and again gives you a really good start. So for all of those, in the company that are doing exams, they get this time on a Tuesday morning where I'll give them a past paper, I'll mark it for them, get them to go and sort of check through which bits that they haven't done. And then other than that, it's kind of studying in their own time. And then when it sort of gets close to the exam, I'll turn a little bit of a blind eye to studying work time.
It sounds like it's a similar model. It's efficiency is what you need to do. Be efficient in what you're studying whilst doing all the other stuff that demands on your time. I think when we're talking about advisors into the role, it's very similar for them as well. So I think I was going to ask, is there a best way to study? And there isn't, is there? It depends on what you're doing and what your life's about. In terms of qualifications, would you recommend, I mentioned some advisors will get the qualifications before they go into role. Would you recommend somebody who's looking to become a paraplanner gets them through the qualification first, has it on their CV? Does that put them in a stronger position?
I think a lot of people tend to actually look with paraplanning for experience, I think, over qualification, right. Just because, generally speaking, you're often looking at kind of smaller companies that maybe don't actually take on a new paraplanner until they really need one. Mm-hmm. And then they don't necessarily have as much time available as they would like to be able to help them. So I think for most paraplanners, it's probably something they do alongside the role rather than beforehand. But I think there's probably a growing number that are maybe taking that first exam before they start to show willingness and to, I guess, probably get a feel for what they're going to be doing.
And what's that first exam, Lisa? RO1?
Well, often it's RO1, which is not necessarily a good start when it comes to knowing what the role will involve.
Yes, I know what Planet CI looks like. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. While we're talking about qualifications, I don't want us to run out of time, and I keep trying to turn things off that I think we're on silent. So excuse me, everybody. Don't want us to run out of time because I want to open up for questions to the audience soon. What about level 6 and beyond? Is that Star Wars? I'm not quite sure. Level 6 and beyond, if you're taking it beyond diploma, is that something you'd recommend? Is that something that's a good idea for somebody in the role? Kimberley, I'm going to come to you first.
Well, obviously I haven't done level 6. I'm still getting level 4. So, but yeah, I mean, at some point I will consider it. I'm in no particular rush, for the extra letters after my name sort of thing, because I do feel that like a mix of qualifications and experience is best. And I do think that I get more from the experience, like I said, because I'm applying the knowledge. I just feel like that benefits me more. And I will do it in my own time. It's not going to be one of these where I go, I want to achieve level 6 in a year, because it's not going to happen for me. And like I said, my commitments outside of work with my children and things, I have to balance it all. So I do think it's a good thing for a paraplanner, to enhance their knowledge. But to me personally, it's not going to be something I'm going to do overnight. Definitely not.
And are firms looking at it from what you've seen, Kimberley? Because I know a lot of people talk to you on LinkedIn. Are firms looking for chartered from paraplanners?
Yeah,
or is that still on the horizon at the minute?
I do think there is a growing demand for it because, like I say, because the advisors and paraplanners are now working on par with each other. It's not sort of seen as the paraplanner is below the advisor.
Yeah.
I think, to a certain extent, some firms are looking for that more advanced knowledge. And it will only enhance the relationships, if the advisor is trusting in the paraplanner who's well qualified, well experienced. I think it's only going to enhance relationships going forward, yeah.
Okay. And Lisa, your thoughts on that one? Just a similar level 6 and beyond. What's your view?
Yeah, so I have done level 6. I have done chartered exams. Like Kimberley, I think she's right about getting that balance between experience and the exams. Now, I think it was probably about 18 years between the first FPC exam I did and the final exam I did to get chartered, because I did it kind of in 3 chunks, depending on, I had young children and, I did a bit and then I'd come back to it and things like that.
And you come back and all the exams have changed, so you have to start again.
Yeah, absolutely. Have to then do the diploma and then do chartered. But I think it is valuable because, well, the exams change, but also, what you're doing changes, the rules change, pensions change. So I think keeping up to date with that knowledge is very useful. Mm-hmm. I think the chartered exams as well, they're a very different format to the RO exams, and they are about applying your knowledge a little bit more. So I think that is also useful. So I think it's something that is important to do, but I don't think it's something that it's worth rushing into doing quickly, because I think you'll probably actually lose some valuable learning by doing that.
And actually the paraplanner, I'm thinking of the AF5 exam as an example. if you're a good paraplanner, what a gift that is, leading towards AF5 rather than the other way around. So one last question. I'm going to open the microphone very quickly, very soon. One last question. Career progression. What do you think, guys? Is it a paraplanner a role for life? What's your thoughts? Because it used to often be viewed as a view to leading on to something else. Let's finish on that one as my last question to you two.
I think it depends entirely on the individual and what they want to do. I think it absolutely is a role for life if that's, you know, what you really, really enjoy doing. And I think with technical paraplanner roles, with the knowledge and experience that you use, you're always learning and you can always be, you know, doing more. When I started paraplanning, probably thought it was going to be a role for life for me, although that has evolved over the last few years. But it's also can lead you into so many different areas, and I don't see it as a stepping stone to advice because it sits alongside advice. It's you know, a different role, but for some people it is a natural route in. Okay.
And Kimberley, same question to you. Career for life, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, everybody knows my thoughts on that. Definitely a career for life. There's loads of avenues you can take, and obviously the outsourced paraplanning world is, you know, ever expanding. If you want to do that, you can work for multiple different firms. You know, only enhances your experience again because different firms work in different ways. You could be paraplanning manager, you could go into compliance. You know, there's so many routes other than financial advisors. I don't know about, you know, being able to find that information. I think that's quite a difficult piece of information to find, you know, the routes of paraplanner and beyond, but not advisor. I don't think there's a lot out there. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see in the future if you know, there is a set source of information we could go to and find out what careers are available in paraplanning.
And if only there was somebody on LinkedIn making a lot of noise about this. If only.
One day maybe I'll be shouting about that.
You might be that person. Right, guys, I'm sorry. It's all been my questions so far. The audience may have some extra questions. So Alex, I'm going to ask you, can we open up the microphone to everybody else? And for our last 10 minutes or so, has anybody else who's currently with us got any questions to ask Lisa or Kimberley?
Jeff, can I go, please?
Of course, Pat. Hi.
Hi, okay. My question would be, I fancy more the advisor role, so that's what I'm looking at the moment. And if, like the ladies say, if I think, well, I've had enough talking to customers face to face, would it be a natural progression that I actually could go sort of sideways and go to the paraplanner role? Because they are linked, but not, as they both said, they are not exactly the same. Would that work?
Yeah, so you've got a couple of different options there, really. You could look for roles that will take on a trainee advisor, and certainly with your previous knowledge and experience, that shouldn't be, you know, a long path, hopefully, to get to advisor status. Or you could start with a paraplanner role, and that has advantage in it terms of it lets you kind of do some of the day-to-day work without necessarily immediately being in front of a client. So you can, you know, develop some of those skills and knowledge without kind of having to see the client straight away.
Kimberley, anything to add? Or
yeah, I think, you know, you will learn a lot from the paraplanning role. And I think you could transfer plenty of skills from, you know, paraplanning into advising and advising into paraplanning. I think they both definitely have lots of transferable skills that you'll find useful in both. But there is plenty of roles out there for trainees. You know, I'm a junior paraplanner. I've managed to find a suitable place to work to fulfill my goals. And definitely, if you look, it's out there, definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Well, Lisa, Kimberley, thank you so much for taking the time to open up about what your role is, what the steps towards it is. If anybody wants to make any contact with anybody at all, what's the best way to do it?
LinkedIn.
Really?
Find me. Yeah, LinkedIn, I'm always on there. If anyone's got any questions or, you know, they want to chat privately, I'm always willing to talk.
Lovely. Thank you, Kimberley. Lisa, anything from you? Or
yeah, LinkedIn too. It's something I barely used until a year ago, but I've definitely really embraced. So yes, LinkedIn.
Okay, like I say, you might both be mentioned in dispatches on LinkedIn later on today, so be ready to be hashtagged or @tagged, whatever it's called. So thank you both for your inputs, guys. Just as a reminder, our next Careers Pathways event, I'm just going to check the dates, on June the 22nd, and that will be hosted by Alexandra Langhorn. And what Alex will be talking about is neurodivergent learning. So Alex is going to be talking to candidates who've studied with specific learning needs. So anybody who's interested, that's something very different to dial into, and Alex will be hosting that. So if there's no further questions, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from my guests. And BTS hope to see you next time. Thanks, everybody.